My phone rang at exactly 10:47 p.m. on a Friday night, and when I saw Marcus's name on the screen, my first instinct was annoyance. My son-in-law always called at the most inconvenient times, usually with some minor question that could have waited until morning. I was already in my silk robe, settling into the Victorian chaise in my bedroom with a glass of Merlot and the art catalogue I'd been meaning to review all week. The call interrupted that rare moment of peace I'd carved out for myself. I answered with the polite but cold voice I'd perfected over the 8 years since he married my daughter Cassandra. "Hello, Marcus." "Eleanor, I'm sorry to call so late." His voice was tight, strained in a way I'd never heard before. Marcus was always so controlled, so professionally detached, even in family situations. That was one of the few things I actually respected about him, though I'd never admit it aloud. "Is Lily there? Is she sleeping in her room?" The urgency caught me off guard. I set down my wine glass. "Yes, of course she's here. She arrived around 7, said she was exhausted and went straight to bed." There was silence. Complete, absolute silence that stretched far too long. I could hear background noise on his end, voices shouting, radio static, the unmistakable chaos of a crime scene. Marcus worked homicide for the Boston Police Department, a fact that had been one of my many objections when Cassandra announced their engagement. No daughter of mine should have to worry whether her husband would come home alive each night. "Marcus," I said, my irritation creeping back, "what's this about?" When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper, ragged and broken. "That's impossible, Eleanor. We just found her body at the crime scene. Lily's dead." The words didn't register immediately. My brain simply refused to process them. Dead? What was he talking about? Lily was upstairs, asleep in the guest room that I decorated specifically for her visits. Pale pink walls with white crown molding, the canopy bed she'd begged me for, shelves lined with the books I'd been collecting for her since she was born. I'd checked on her less than an hour ago, seen the small lump under the white duvet, heard the soft sound of breathing. "Marcus, that's not funny. What are you—" "I'm standing here looking at her right now." His voice cracked. "She's wearing the blue dress with the butterflies, the one Cassandra bought her last month. Eleanor, you need to get out of the house, right now. Don't go near whoever's in that room." My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. "Marcus, you're not making sense. Lily is here. She's asleep. I saw her." "Listen to me." He was trying to sound professional, to summon that detective's authority, but I could hear him falling apart. "Whatever you saw, whoever's in that room, it's not Lily. Our daughter died approximately 2 hours ago. The medical examiner is here. I've identified her body. She's gone, Eleanor. She's gone, and if someone else is in your house—" That's when I heard it. Clear as a bell coming from somewhere behind me in the hallway. A child's laughter. Soft, almost musical, but wrong somehow. The pitch was slightly off, like a recording played at the wrong speed. I turned slowly. The hallway was dark, except for the nightlight I kept plugged in near the bathroom. Lily was afraid of the dark, though she always tried to act brave about it, saying she wanted to be tough like Daddy. The door to the guest room was ajar, exactly as I'd left it. But now I could see movement in the shadows, something small shifting in the darkness. "Eleanor! Eleanor, are you there?" Marcus was shouting into the phone, but his voice sounded distant, muffled, as if he were calling from underwater. "I heard laughing," I whispered. "I heard a child laugh." "Get out of the house, now. I'm sending units to you. I'm 10 minutes away. Eleanor, please, just go." Another laugh, closer this time. And then, in a voice that sounded exactly like my granddaughter's, high and sweet. "Grandma Ellie? Are you still awake?" My blood went cold. Lily always called me Grandma Ellie, always. She'd started it when she was 3, unable to pronounce Eleanor, and it had stuck. Only she used that nickname. Only she knew about it. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling despite my attempt at authority. I'd built a successful art gallery business over 30 years, negotiated deals worth millions, faced down aggressive competitors and difficult clients. I didn't scare easily. But this was different. The figure moved into the doorway, and my heart nearly stopped. It was Lily. Exactly Lily. Same brown curls that caught the light, same dark almond-shaped eyes, same spattering of freckles across her nose. She was wearing the pink nightgown with stars that I'd bought her for Christmas last year. She even had the little gap between her front teeth that made her smile so distinctive. "I couldn't sleep," she said, rubbing her eyes in that theatrical way children do when they're pretending to be more tired than they are. "Can I have some water?" I stared at her, phone still pressed to my ear. Marcus's distant voice still shouting urgent instructions I couldn't process. This was my granddaughter. Every detail was perfect. The way she shifted her weight from foot to foot, the way she twisted a curl around her finger when she was nervous, even the small scar on her knee from when she'd fallen off her bike last summer. But Marcus's words kept echoing in my mind. "We found her body. She's dead." "Lily?" I said carefully. "Sweetie, how did you get here tonight? Who brought you?" She tilted her head, studying me with those dark eyes. "Mrs. Patterson from next door gave me a ride. Remember? Daddy had to work late and you said I could come early." That was wrong, completely wrong. I'd never said that. Marcus was supposed to bring her at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'd confirmed it 3 days ago when Cassandra left for her business trip to Chicago. I would never have agreed to have a 7-year-old dropped off alone in the evening. "Eleanor!" Marcus's voice pierced through my confusion. "Talk to me. Are you safe? Did you get out?" I couldn't move, couldn't speak. This child looked exactly like Lily, sounded exactly like her. But something was wrong. Something fundamental that my mind couldn't quite grasp, but my instincts were screaming about. "Why are you acting weird, Grandma Ellie?" The child, Lily, not Lily, I didn't know anymore, took a step closer. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, sweetheart. No, you didn't." I forced myself to smile, to keep my voice calm even though my heart was hammering. I need to check something. Can you go back to bed? I'll bring you water in a minute." She smiled. That same sweet smile I'd seen 1,000 times. But then I noticed something that made my stomach drop. Her eyes. When the light from the nightlight hit them at just the right angle, they reflected. Actually reflected, the way an animal's eyes do in the dark. Green and luminous and absolutely inhuman. "Okay, Grandma Ellie," she said, turning back toward the guest room. "Don't take too long. I'm really thirsty." She walked back into the darkness, and I heard the bed creak as she climbed into it. Normal sounds, familiar sounds, but nothing about this was normal. "Marcus," I whispered into the phone, barely able to form words. "Something's wrong. You're right. Something is very, very wrong. I'm 6 minutes out. 5 units are on their way. Eleanor, I need you to walk out the front door right now. Don't run. Don't make noise. Just walk out calmly and get to your car." "Can you do that?" I looked at the stairs leading down to the first floor. My front door was down there, 40 feet away, between me and safety. I could make it, should make it, but my legs wouldn't cooperate. I was frozen, staring at that darkened guest room where something wearing my granddaughter's face was pretending to sleep. "Tell me about Lily," I said, my voice breaking. "Tell me what you found." Marcus made a sound that might have been a sob. "Eleanor, please, tell me. I need to know." He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was hollow. "We found her at an abandoned warehouse near the docks. I've been investigating a human trafficking ring for 4 months. They took her as a message to make me back off. She died trying to escape, fell from a loading platform. It was fast, Eleanor. She didn't suffer long." The room spun. I grabbed the doorframe to steady myself. My beautiful, brave granddaughter. Dead because of her father's work. Dead because criminals decided to use a child as leverage. Dead while I was sitting in my gallery this afternoon, discussing the placement of a new sculpture installation, completely unaware that my world was ending. What was she wearing? I whispered. The blue dress with the butterflies and her white sneakers, the ones with the pink laces she picked out herself. Not the pink nightgown with stars, not pajamas, a dress. Lily had been wearing a dress when she died, and the thing upstairs was in nightclothes that shouldn't exist, couldn't exist, because my granddaughter never made it to my house tonight. She'd died miles away, terrified and alone, while something else arrived in her place. Marcus, what's in my house? The question came out as a whimper. I hated how weak I sounded, how completely this situation had stripped away all my carefully constructed composure. I was Eleanor Hartwell, owner of 3 prestigious art galleries, widow of one of Boston's most successful patent attorneys, a woman who lunched with senators' wives and served on museum boards. I didn't believe in monsters. I didn't believe in anything I couldn't see, touch, and verify. But I'd just seen my dead granddaughter's eyes reflect light like a cat's. I don't know, Marcus admitted. But I've seen things in my career that don't make sense. Things that don't get reported because no one would believe them. 5 years ago, we had a case where a mother swore her son was home safe while we were pulling his body out of the Charles River. Turned out something else had been in her house for 3 days, pretending to be him. By the time we figured it out, he trailed off. What happened? She killed herself, said she couldn't live knowing she'd let it touch her, that she'd made dinner for it, tucked it into bed, kissed it goodnight. I thought about how I'd looked in on the thing upstairs less than an hour ago. How close I'd gotten to the bed. Had I touched it? I couldn't remember. The medication I took for anxiety sometimes made my memory fuzzy, especially in the evenings. Dr. Chen had warned me about increasing the dosage, but after Robert died 3 years ago in that car accident, sleep became impossible without help. And lately, I'd been taking more than prescribed. Tonight, had I taken my usual dose or the double that sometimes made the next few hours blur together? I'm coming upstairs, Grandma Ellie. The voice drifted from the guest room, sweet and innocent. I'm still thirsty, and you forgot the water. Don't move, Marcus said urgently. Units are 2 minutes out. I'm 4 minutes away. Just stay on the phone with me. But I heard footsteps, small feet padding across the hardwood floor of the guest room, then into the hallway, coming closer. The thing that looked like Lily emerged from the shadows again, and this time it wasn't even pretending to be sleepy. It was wide awake, alert, studying me with an intelligence that no 7-year-old should possess. You're scared of me, it said. Not a question, an observation. Why are you scared of me, Grandma Ellie? It's just me. It's just Lily. Lily's dead. The words came out flat, emotionless. Shock, I realized distantly. I was going into shock. Marcus told me, you're not her. What are you? The thing smiled, and this time there was nothing childlike about the expression. It was ancient and knowing and cruel. I could be her. I could be exactly her if you'd just let me. If you'd just believe. That's all it takes, you know. Belief. Love. That's what makes us real. Eleanor, walk away from it. Now. Marcus's voice was sharp with command. In the background, I could hear sirens, close, getting closer, but I couldn't move. I was staring at this thing wearing my granddaughter's face, and part of me, the part that had been drowning in grief since Robert died, the part that found joy only in Lily's visits, the part that was so desperately lonely in this big empty house, wanted to believe, wanted to pretend Marcus was wrong, that this was all a terrible mistake, that my sweet girl was really here and really safe. I know what you're thinking, the thing said softly. It took a step closer, and I let it. You're thinking maybe it wouldn't be so bad, to just pretend, to have her back, even if it's not quite right, because something is better than nothing, isn't it? And you're so tired of being alone. It was reading my mind, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe I was just that transparent, that predictable in my pain. A wealthy widow in a big house with no one to share it, estranged from her only daughter by years of criticism and impossible expectations, with a granddaughter who'd become her only real source of love. Of course I'd want to believe. Of course I'd want to take whatever version of Lily I could get. She's not alone. Marcus's voice cut through the thing's spell. Cassandra and I are coming. Her family is coming. And Lily's gone. Eleanor, really gone. What you're looking at is something that feeds on grief. Don't let it win. The sirens were screaming now, right outside. Red and blue lights flashed through my bedroom window, painting the hallway in alternating colors. The thing that looked like Lily glanced toward the window, then back at me. Its face shifted subtly, becoming less perfect, the features slightly off. "Last chance," it whispered. "Send them away. Tell them it was a mistake. Keep me, and I'll be whatever you need. I'll be the granddaughter who visits every weekend, the one who thinks you're perfect, the one who never disappoints you or judges you, or makes you feel like you failed as a mother." That last part stung because it was true. I had failed as a mother. Cassandra and I barely spoke beyond polite pleasantries. I'd spent her entire childhood pushing her to be perfect, to maintain the standards I'd set, to marry the right kind of man from the right kind of family. And when she'd chosen Marcus, good-hearted, but poor Marcus with his working-class parents and state college education, I'd made my disappointment clear, made her wedding day a misery with my thinly veiled criticism, made every family dinner uncomfortable with my cold politeness toward her husband. Lily had been my chance to do better, to love without conditions, to be the grandmother I'd never been as a mother. And now she was gone, and this thing knew exactly how to exploit that wound. Heavy footsteps pounded up my front stairs. "Boston police! Mrs. Hartwell, are you safe?" I looked at the thing one more time, really looked at it, and I saw what I'd been trying not to see. It wasn't Lily. Couldn't ever be Lily. My granddaughter had a way of biting her lower lip when she was nervous. She had a tiny birthmark behind her left ear. She hummed off-key when she was happy. This thing had gotten the appearance right, the basic mannerisms, but it lacked the essence, the spark, the indefinable quality that made Lily herself. "I'm here," I called out, my voice stronger now. "Second floor, and I'm not alone." The thing's expression twisted into something ugly and inhuman. It opened its mouth, and the sound that came out was nothing like a child's voice. It was multiple voices overlapping, whispering, hissing, threatening. Then it ran. Impossibly fast, moving on all fours in a way no human could, it shot past me and down the hallway toward the back of the house. 3 police officers burst onto the second floor, weapons drawn. Marcus was with them, his face pale and tear-streaked. He looked at me, checking for injuries, then his eyes went to the open guest room door. "Which way?" one of the officers demanded. I pointed toward the back hallway, the one that led to the old servants' quarters I'd converted into storage. "That way." But Marcus? I looked at my son-in-law, really looked at him for the first time in years. Saw him not as the disappointment who'd married my daughter, but as a father who'd just lost his child and was somehow still functioning, still protecting, still trying to save me. "She's really gone, isn't she? Lily's really dead." He nodded, and the professional mask finally cracked. "I'm so sorry, Eleanor. I'm so sorry I couldn't protect her." The weight of it hit me all at once. Lily was dead. My granddaughter, my joy, my second chance at being the person I should have been all along, she was gone. And I'd spent the last hour talking to something wearing her face like a costume. I heard myself make a sound I didn't recognize, something between a scream and a sob. My legs gave out, and Marcus caught me before I hit the floor. The police searched my house for 40 minutes but found nothing. No trace of the thing that had worn Lily's face. No evidence it had ever been there at all, except for my testimony and Marcus's frantic phone call. The guest room was undisturbed, bed neatly made, nothing out of place. It was as if I'd imagined the entire encounter. But I knew I hadn't. And Marcus believed me, which was something I wouldn't have expected from him. Then again, I'd spent 8 years underestimating my son-in-law. Maybe it was time I admitted that. They took me to the hospital as a precaution. Standard procedure after trauma, they said. I didn't argue. The truth was, I needed to get out of that house. Needed to be somewhere with fluorescent lights and sterile surfaces and people who dealt in facts, not impossibilities. Marcus stayed with me the entire time, even though protocol said he should have been processing his daughter's crime scene or identifying her body officially or doing any of the 100 other terrible things police officers have to do when someone they love becomes a case number. You should go, I told him around 2 a.m., sitting on a hospital bed in the emergency department while a nurse checked my blood pressure for the 3rd time. There are things you need to do. I'm fine. You're not fine. He looked exhausted, his eyes red-rimmed and hollow. And I'm not leaving you alone right now. Marcus, Eleanor, please. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture I'd seen him do countless times when my daughter was around. I couldn't protect Lily. Let me at least make sure you're safe. The guilt in his voice broke something inside me. This was what I'd done, spent years making him feel like he wasn't enough, like his job wasn't respectable enough, like his background wasn't suitable enough. And now his daughter was dead because of his work, and he was blaming himself for not being able to protect her while simultaneously trying to protect me. The woman who'd made it clear at every family gathering that she didn't think he deserved her daughter. It's not your fault, I said quietly. What happened to Lily? It's not your fault. He looked at me, surprise flickering across his exhausted face. You've been telling Cassandra for years that my job puts the family in danger. I was wrong. The words felt foreign in my mouth. I'd spent most of my adult life being absolutely certain I was right about everything. How to run a business, how to raise a daughter, how to judge the worthiness of others. Admitting error didn't come naturally. I was wrong about a lot of things. Before he could respond, my phone rang. Cassandra. I'd been dreading this moment since Marcus's call, knowing I'd have to hear my daughter learn that her child was dead. Knowing I'd have to listen to her heartbreak in real time over a phone connection from Chicago. I answered, Sweetheart, Mom, what the hell is going on? Her voice was sharp with panic. Marcus's partner called me. He said there was an incident at your house and I needed to get home immediately. He wouldn't tell me anything else. Is Lily okay? Is she with you? I looked at Marcus. He closed his eyes, fresh tears sliding down his cheeks. He couldn't do it. Couldn't find the words to tell his wife that their only child was gone. So I did it for him, because for once in my selfish life, I could take on someone else's pain instead of adding to it. Cassandra, I need you to sit down. Right now. Find somewhere private and sit down. Mom, you're scaring me. What? Lily's dead, honey. She died tonight. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. The sound she made wasn't human. It was the sound of a mother's soul shattering. I heard something crash in the background, heard her screaming, No, 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 heard hotel staff asking if she was all right. Marcus took the phone from my shaking hands and spoke in low, urgent tones, trying to get details about her flight home, trying to make sure she wasn't alone, trying to function as a detective instead of a grieving father, because if he stopped moving, he'd collapse. I sat there listening to my daughter fall apart 900 miles away, and I thought about how we'd gotten here. Not just tonight, but all of it. The years of distance between us, the cold politeness that had replaced actual relationship, the way I'd prioritized my vision of what her life should be over accepting what it actually was. It had started when she was 16 and announced she wanted to study design instead of art history. I'd built my entire career in the art world, My father's gallery that I'd transformed into 3 highly successful locations, my reputation as a curator with impeccable taste, my social standing among Boston's cultural elite. I'd assumed Cassandra would follow that path, take over the business eventually. But she wanted something different, something more practical, she said. Interior design for corporate clients. I'd made my disappointment clear, made her feel like she was settling for something lesser. And when she met Marcus in college, a criminal justice major whose father worked construction and whose mother was a school cafeteria manager, I'd been even more vocal about my objections. This wasn't the life I'd envisioned for her. She was beautiful, intelligent, cultured. She could have had anyone. Why choose someone so ordinary? But she'd loved him. Really loved him in a way I'd never quite understood. My marriage to Robert had been more of a strategic partnership, 2 successful people from similar backgrounds building an impressive life together. We'd been fond of each other, certainly, but Cassandra looked at Marcus like he was her entire world, and he looked at her the same way. It was inconvenient and illogical, and I'd resented it. I'd made their wedding day uncomfortable with my barely concealed disapproval. I'd made family dinners tense with my pointed comments about Marcus's salary and career prospects. I'd suggested more than once that Cassandra was wasting her talent and potential. And gradually, predictably, my daughter had pulled away. Our conversations became shorter, less frequent, more superficial. She stopped asking my opinion about things, stopped inviting me to family events unless absolutely necessary. Then Lily was born and everything changed, or I thought it had. My granddaughter was perfect. Those dark eyes, those soft curls, that gap-toothed smile. She was everything pure and good and uncomplicated. With her, I could start over. Be the nurturing, loving figure I'd never quite managed to be with Cassandra. No expectations, no disappointment, just unconditional love. But even that I'd managed to complicate. I'd made comments about how often Lily should visit, suggested that she needed more cultural refinement than Marcus and Cassandra could provide, offered to pay for private schools and summer programs that would keep her in my orbit. I'd been doing the same thing I'd always done, trying to control, trying to mold people into my vision instead of accepting them as they were. And now Lily was gone, and I'd never get the chance to do better. Never get to be the grandmother she deserved, instead of the one who used her as a second chance at redemption. Eleanor? A woman's voice pulled me from my spiral of guilt. I looked up to find someone I didn't recognize standing in the doorway of my hospital room. She was maybe 40, with severe black hair pulled into a tight bun, wearing dark clothes that seemed professional but not medical. I'm Dr. Sienna Moss. Detective Donovan called me. Marcus was still on the phone with Cassandra, but he glanced over and nodded, confirming that he knew this woman. Doctor of what? I asked, my business instincts kicking in automatically. I'd spent 3 decades dealing with people who claimed expertise they didn't have. I knew how to spot fraud. Paranormal psychology and anomalous phenomena. She said it matter-of-factly, as if it were as legitimate as cardiology or orthopedics. I consult with law enforcement on cases that don't fit conventional parameters. I wanted to laugh. Would have laughed, maybe, if I hadn't just spent an hour being hunted by something wearing my dead granddaughter's face. You're saying you investigate ghosts. Not ghosts. Entities that exploit human grief and emotional attachment. What you encountered tonight isn't a ghost, Mrs. Hartwell. It's something much worse. Marcus ended his call and came back over. His voice was rough. Cassandra's getting on a flight in 2 hours. Her boss is arranging a private plane. Is she alone? Dr. Moss asked. No, her assistant is with her, and I called Cassandra's brother. He's meeting them at the airport here. I frowned. Cassandra doesn't have a brother. Her assistant's brother, Marcus clarified. Someone to make sure she doesn't fall apart on the flight. Dr. Moss turned her attention back to me. Mrs. Hartwell, I need to ask you some questions about what happened tonight, specifically about Lily's arrival at your house. She didn't arrive. It wasn't her. But you thought it was initially. You believed it was your granddaughter until Detective Donovan called. Why? I thought back, trying to remember through the fog of medication and shock. She arrived around 7, earlier than planned. Marcus was supposed to bring her tomorrow morning, but she said Mrs. Patterson from next door gave her a ride. And you believed that? I paused. Had I believed it? Or had I been too medicated to question it properly? I don't remember. I'd taken my anxiety medication. Sometimes it makes things fuzzy. What medication? What dosage? I told her, watching her expression tighten. That's a significant amount, especially if you'd been drinking alcohol as well. I had 1 glass of wine. Then I remembered. Maybe 2. I'm not always sure. So you were impaired when the entity arrived. That makes sense. It couldn't have maintained the illusion if you'd been fully alert. These things need a crack in your perception to slip through. Marcus was looking at me strangely, and I realized he didn't know about my medication issues. Neither did Cassandra. I'd hidden it well. The increasing doses, the way I'd started mixing pills with wine to get through the lonely evenings, the gaps in my memory that I blamed on being 67 instead of on substance abuse. Mrs. Hartwell, the entity that came to your house tonight feeds on emotional bonds between the living and the recently deceased. Your granddaughter died around 8:30 p.m. It manifested at your home by 7 p.m. That's extremely unusual. Typically, there's a longer gap. What does that mean? It means the entity was already there, waiting. It knew Lily was going to die before she actually did. The implications of that were horrifying. You're saying someone summoned it? Deliberately? No. I'm saying it was drawn to an existing situation. Your granddaughter was in danger, you were isolated and vulnerable, and the emotional terrain was already perfect for exploitation. These entities are opportunistic. They sense when circumstances align. Marcus spoke up, his voice hard. The trafficking ring I've been investigating. They've been active in Boston for at least 8 months. They took Lily to send me a message. What if they brought this thing in too, as extra punishment? Unlikely, Dr. Moss said. These entities aren't controllable. They're more like parasites sensing weakness. Your investigation created danger for Lily. Mrs. Hartwell's isolation and impairment created vulnerability. The entity simply exploited the opportunity. I felt sick. My medication habit, my loneliness, my desperate need for Lily's company. I'd created the perfect conditions for that thing to slip into my life wearing her face. If I'd been sober, clear-headed, maybe I would have noticed something was wrong immediately. Maybe I could have called Marcus sooner. Maybe... Stop, Marcus said quietly, reading my expression. We both have enough guilt to drown in. Don't add this to it. But I couldn't stop, because the more I thought about it, the more I realized how perfectly I'd been set up. I was a wealthy widow living alone in a large house, estranged from my daughter through my own actions, increasingly dependent on substances to manage my grief over Robert's death 3 years ago. I'd made myself into exactly the kind of target these things apparently sought out. What happens now? I asked Dr. Moss. It's gone. The police searched and found nothing. It's not gone. It's waiting. These entities need 72 hours to complete what's called anchoring, fully integrating with the human world using the deceased person's identity. If you had continued believing it was Lily, if Marcus hadn't called when he did, it would have had time to solidify. After 72 hours, it becomes almost impossible to dislodge. But I know now. I know it's not Lily. So it failed. Dr. Moss shook her head. You know intellectually, but emotionally. Mrs. Hartwell, you just lost your granddaughter. The person who, by your own admission, was your primary source of joy. The entity is betting that your grief will override your logic, that you'll want to believe so badly that you'll let it come back. She was right, and we both knew it. Because even now, even knowing what I knew, Part of me wanted to see that face again, hear that voice, pretend for just a little while that Lily was still alive. The pain of her loss was so crushing that anything, even a monstrous imitation, seemed preferable to the emptiness. "How do we stop it?" Marcus asked. "We don't. You do. You and Mrs. Hartwell and your wife, the three people who loved Lily most. You have to confront it together and fully accept her death. Emotionally, not just intellectually. You have to let her go completely in the entity's presence. Only then will it lose its power." Marcus looked at me, his expression grim. "Can you do that? Can you face that thing again?" I thought about Lily. Real Lily, not the imitation. The way she'd squeal with delight when I took her to galleries. The way she'd hold my hand and ask endless questions about the paintings. The way she'd fall asleep on my couch with art books scattered around her, dreaming of becoming an artist someday. She was gone, really, truly gone. And I had to accept that, not just in my head, but in my heart. Had to stop looking for ways to bring her back or replace her or avoid the devastating reality of her loss. "Yes," I said finally, "I can do it. For Lily. Not the thing that pretended to be her. For the real Lily, who deserved better from me while she was alive." Dr. Moss nodded approvingly. "Good, because it's going to come back, and when it does, you'll need to be ready." They released me from the hospital around 6 in the morning. I refused to go back to my house, so Marcus drove me to a hotel downtown, one of those boutique places I'd never normally consider because I had a perfectly good home. Except my home wasn't safe anymore. My home had become the hunting ground for something that wore my granddaughter's face. Marcus checked me in under a false name, a precaution he said was necessary. If this thing is as intelligent as Dr. Moss suggests, it might try to track you. How would it track me? It's not. I paused, realizing I didn't even know what to call it. A ghost? A demon? A parasite, as Dr. Moss had said? "We don't know what it can do," Marcus admitted. "Better to be careful." He left me in the room with instructions to keep my phone on and not open the door for anyone except him or Cassandra. I stood there for a long time after he left, staring at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I looked every one of my 67 years. The careful maintenance I'd always prided myself on, the regular salon appointments, the expensive skincare, the elegant clothing choices, meant nothing when stripped down to hospital-issued clothes and exhaustion. I looked like exactly what I was, an old woman who'd lost everything that mattered. My phone rang. Cassandra. She'd landed 20 minutes ago and was on her way. "Mom, where are you? Marcus said you're at a hotel." I gave her the address. "How are you holding up?" It was a stupid question. How could she possibly be holding up? Her daughter was dead. But I didn't know what else to say. 3 decades of emotional distance meant I'd never learned how to comfort my own child. "I don't know." Her voice was raw, wrecked. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will be a nightmare. I keep checking my phone for texts from her teacher. Lily was supposed to have a field trip next week and I need to sign the permission slip, and then I remember." She broke off, sobbing. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry." "Marcus told me what happened at your house, what you saw." She paused. "Do you really believe it was something supernatural? Or were you just confused because of the medication?" I'd been expecting this question. Cassandra was practical, logical, grounded in reality. She designed spaces with precise measurements and specific color palettes. She didn't believe in things that couldn't be explained by science and reason. "I don't know what I believe," I said carefully, "but I know what I saw, and Marcus believes me." "Marcus is in shock. We're all in shock. Mom, I think you should see someone, a therapist maybe. Someone who can help you process, 'I'm not having a breakdown, Cassandra. I wish I were. I wish this were just medication and grief making me hallucinate.' But it wasn't. Something was in my house wearing Lily's face, and Dr. Moss says it's going to come back." Silence. Then, "Who the hell is Dr. Moss?" "A specialist Marcus called. She deals with cases like this. Cases like what? Mothers who can't accept their children are dead? Mom, I need you to be rational right now. I need at least one parent figure who isn't falling apart. Her words stung, but they were fair. I'd spent years judging her choices, criticizing her husband, maintaining emotional distance. Now, when she needed me most, she didn't trust me to be stable. I'd earned that distrust. Come to the hotel, I said quietly. See me face to face. Then decide if you think I'm having a breakdown. She arrived 40 minutes later, looking devastated. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her clothes rumpled from the flight. I hugged her, really hugged her, not the brief social embrace we usually exchanged. She stiffened at first, then collapsed against me, sobbing. "My baby," she kept saying. "My baby, my baby, my baby." I held her and let her cry, stroking her hair like I should have done more often when she was young. Like I should have done every day of her life instead of pushing her to be stronger, more composed, more controlled. Marcus arrived an hour later with Dr. Moss. They'd been at the morgue making final arrangements. I watched Cassandra's face when she saw her husband, watched her cross the room and press herself against him, both of them holding each other like drowning people. This was real love, raw and messy and completely genuine. Not the carefully curated partnership I'd had with Robert, but something deeper and more essential. I'd been so wrong about them, about everything. Dr. Moss set up her laptop on the hotel room desk. "I need to show you something. It's not easy to watch, but you need to understand what we're dealing with." She pulled up security footage from various locations, residential homes, apartments, even a nursing home. In each clip, I saw the same pattern. A figure that looked like someone who'd recently died. A family member reacting with joy, confusion, or fear. And then, inevitably, the thing's mask slipping. Eyes reflecting light. Movements becoming inhuman. Faces shifting into something ancient and cruel. "This footage spans the last 15 years, Dr. Moss explained. These entities appear wherever there's grief and vulnerability. They feed on the emotional bond between the living and the dead. The stronger the bond, the more powerful they become." "How many people have died because of them?" Marcus asked, his voice tight. 47 confirmed cases. Probably hundreds more that were never reported or were classified as suicide or psychotic breaks. Dr. Moss clicked to another file. "This is the relevant part for your situation. In every case where the entity was successfully repelled, it required the deceased person's closest family members to confront it together and fully accept the death. Not just intellectually, emotionally. They had to let go completely." "And in cases where they didn't?" Cassandra asked. "The entity completed its anchoring. It's not possession in the traditional sense. It becomes a permanent fixture in our reality using the dead person's identity. It lives with the family, mimics their loved one, feeds on their grief. Some families never figure out what's happened. They just think their loved one came back changed, colder, different." I thought about that, living with something wearing Lily's face for years, decades maybe, watching it grow up in her body, using her memories, mimicking her voice. Never quite right, but close enough that we'd make excuses, tell ourselves people change, convince ourselves it was still her. "How long do we have?" Marcus asked. "The entity manifested around 7 p.m. last night. That gives us until 7 p.m. Sunday night, roughly 61 hours from now." Cassandra was shaking her head. "This is insane. You're asking us to believe in monsters, in supernatural parasites. I can't process this on top of losing Lily." "You don't have to believe in it," Dr. Moss said. "You just have to be prepared when it comes back." "If it comes back," Cassandra corrected. "Mom, I love you, but you were on heavy medication. You'd been drinking. You were half asleep when this supposedly happened. Isn't it more likely that you dreamed it or hallucinated?" I understood her resistance. It was easier to believe I was unstable than to accept something impossible existed. But I'd seen those eyes reflect light. I'd heard that voice shift into something inhuman. I knew what was real. Cassandra, I need you to trust me. I kept my voice calm, reasonable. I know I haven't given you many reasons to trust my judgment over the years. I know I've been critical and controlling and cold. But I'm asking you to believe me now. Please. She looked at me for a long moment, conflict clear on her face. Then she turned to Marcus. What do you think? I think your mother saw something, and I think we can't afford to dismiss it, even if there's only a 1% chance she's right. Dr. Moss closed her laptop. The entity will try to separate you emotionally before it makes another appearance. It will exploit existing conflicts, amplify doubts, create distance. Your best defense is to stay together and stay unified. So what do? I asked. Just wait for it to show up? We prepare. And we deal with Lily's funeral arrangements, because the entity will almost certainly appear there. Funerals are prime territory for these things. Everyone's grief is peaked, emotional defenses are down, and the deceased person is literally present in some form. The funeral. I hadn't even thought about that. My granddaughter would need a funeral, a burial, a memorial. Real, concrete evidence that she was gone. The thought made me want to vomit. I can't do a funeral right now, Cassandra said, her voice breaking. I can't stand in front of people and accept condolences like this is normal. Like my daughter didn't die because my husband's job put a target on our family. Marcus flinched. Cass, don't tell me it's not your fault. Don't tell me you were just doing your job. Our daughter is dead because criminals decided to send you a message. That's the reality. You think I don't know that? His voice rose, finally cracking. You think I'm not living in that reality every second? I see her face every time I close my eyes. I see her falling. I hear her screaming for me. I know this is my fault. Stop it. I surprised myself by speaking up. Both of you, stop. Cassandra, Marcus didn't kill Lily. Evil people killed her. People he was trying to stop from hurting other children. And Marcus, you carrying guilt isn't going to bring her back. I've spent the last 3 years drowning in guilt over Robert's death, and all it's done is make me dependent on pills and push away everyone I care about. They both stared at me. I'd never been this direct, this honest, never admitted weakness or fault so openly. Your mother's right, Dr. Moss said. The entity will use your anger at each other. It will feed on the fractures in your relationships. You need to address this now before it gets worse. Cassandra sank onto the hotel bed, covering her face with her hands. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to bury my daughter and also fight some supernatural thing and also hold together a marriage that's falling apart. Your marriage isn't falling apart, I said quietly. You're grieving. You're both grieving. And grief makes people look for someone to blame. Like you blamed yourself for Dad's death? Cassandra looked up at me, and I saw something in her expression I hadn't seen in years. Vulnerability. Real, genuine vulnerability. You never talked about it. Never explained why you started pulling away from everyone after he died. I sat down next to her. Your father had been drinking that night. Not much, just a glass or two of wine with dinner. But it was enough that he shouldn't have driven. I told him to take an Uber. We argued about it. He insisted he was fine, and I didn't push hard enough, so he got in his car, and 10 minutes later he was dead. Hit by a drunk driver on the other side of the road who swerved into his lane. Mom, that wasn't your fault. The drunk driver, I know. Intellectually, I know. But emotionally? I shook my head. I blamed myself. Started taking medication to sleep because I'd lie awake replaying that argument. Started drinking to numb the guilt. Started isolating because I didn't want anyone to see how broken I was. And I used Lily as my emotional crutch. She was the only person I could be around without feeling like I had to perform. Marcus spoke up. Eleanor, I never knew. No one did. I hid it well. But the point is, I understand guilt. And I understand how it can destroy you if you let it. Marcus, What happened to Lily wasn't your fault any more than Robert's death was mine. But if you keep carrying that guilt, it will poison everything. Your marriage, your memories of Lily, your entire life." He was crying now, silently, tears streaming down his face. Cassandra moved to sit beside him, taking his hand. They sat there together, broken and grieving, and I felt like an intruder on their private pain. But I also felt something else, a determination I hadn't experienced in years. I was going to help them survive this. I was going to be the mother and grandmother I should have been all along, even if it was too late for Lily to benefit from it. Dr. Moss cleared her throat. "I need to ask some difficult questions about Lily's last day, her routines, her schedule, anything that might help us understand why the entity chose this particular manifestation." Marcus pulled himself together. She was supposed to spend the day with Cassandra's assistant, Julie. Julie picked her up from school at 3. They were going to get ice cream, maybe see a movie. I was supposed to pick her up at Julie's apartment around 7. "But she never made it to Julie's apartment," I said, pieces clicking together. "The entity manifested at my house around 7. The real Lily died around 8:30. "The abduction happened at 4:15, Marcus said. "We have surveillance footage from the ice cream shop. 2 men approached them. They showed Julie a badge, fake but convincing, said they needed to take Lily in for questioning related to one of my cases. Julie didn't know what to do. She called me, but I was in a dead zone at another crime scene. By the time I got her message 45 minutes later, they were gone." Cassandra made a wounded sound. Julie must be devastated. "She's in protective custody. The trafficking ring knows she can identify the men who took Lily." Dr. Moss was taking notes. "So the entity appeared at Eleanor's house before the real Lily died. That's consistent with what I've seen in other cases. The entity doesn't wait for death. It anticipates it. It's drawn to situations where death is imminent and grief is prepared." "How could it know Lily would die?" I asked. "Even the men who took her didn't intend to kill her. Marcus said it was an accident." "These entities exist partially outside linear time. They perceive death approaching the way we might perceive a storm on the horizon. Once they sense it, they begin positioning themselves." "That's terrifying," Cassandra whispered. "Yes," Dr. Moss agreed. "But it also means they're not omnipotent. They're opportunistic predators. They need specific conditions to succeed: grief, vulnerability, emotional attachment. If you disrupt any of those conditions, you can drive them away." "So we have to not grieve?" Marcus's voice was bitter. "We're supposed to just switch off our emotions for our dead daughter?" "No. You're supposed to grieve fully and completely, but without leaving room for the entity to exploit. That means accepting she's truly gone. Not hoping for miracles. Not looking for signs she's still around. Not bargaining with the universe for one more chance to see her." I thought about the past 3 years since Robert died. All the times I'd imagined conversations with him. All the moments I'd pretended he was still in the house, just in another room. All the ways I'd refused to fully accept his death. I'd created exactly the kind of vulnerability Dr. Moss was describing. "The funeral needs to happen soon," Dr. Moss continued. "Within the next 48 hours if possible. It will force all of you to confront the reality of Lily's death in a concrete way." "I'll make the arrangements," I said. "You two need to rest. Let me handle this." Cassandra looked at me with surprise. "Mom, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. Let me do this for her, for all of us." Marcus nodded slowly. "Thank you, Eleanor." We spent the rest of the day making terrible, necessary decisions. Casket or cremation, service location, guest list, what Lily should wear. Each choice was agony, but also strangely grounding. This was real. This was happening. Lily was dead, and we had to honor her properly. Around 4 in the afternoon, Cassandra fell asleep from exhaustion. Marcus stepped out to coordinate with his department about the investigation. Dr. Moss and I were left alone in the hotel room. "You're holding up better than most," she observed. I'm in survival mode. I'll fall apart later. That's not what I mean. You've made significant emotional progress in the last 12 hours, admitting your medication issues, acknowledging your failures as a mother, taking responsibility instead of deflecting. That's rare. Losing Lily gave me perspective, made me realize how much time I've wasted on things that don't matter. I paused. Do you really think we can stop this thing, honestly? I think you have a better chance than most families. You're already confronting hard truths about yourselves. You're working together despite years of conflict. If you can maintain that unity when the entity appears, yes, I think you can drive it away. And if we can't? Dr. Moss's expression was grim. Then it stays. It becomes Lily, or enough of Lily that you'll convince yourselves it's real. You'll raise it, love it, never quite shake the feeling that something's wrong, but never quite able to name what. And it will feed on your grief and your love until you die. Then it will move on to someone else. That can't happen. I won't let it. Good, because it's going to test you. It will appear as Lily at her most vulnerable, most lovable. It will say things only she would know. It will exploit every regret you have about how you treated her when she was alive. And you'll want to believe. You'll want it so badly that your logic will scream at you to accept the impossible. How do you know so much about this? She looked away. Because I failed once. 20 years ago. My son died in a car accident. Something came to my house wearing his face, and I let it stay for 6 months before I figured out what it was. What happened? I performed the ritual Dr. Moss, the real Dr. Moss, taught me. My mentor, who died 5 years ago. I accepted my son's death fully, completely, and the entity left. But those 6 months? She shook her head. I don't recommend it. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Use my experience. Learn from my failure. Because that thing is going to come back, Eleanor. And when it does, you need to be ready to say goodbye to Lily, the real goodbye you never got to give her. I nodded, but inside I was terrified, because Dr. Moss was right. When I saw that face again, heard that voice, I would want to believe, would want to hold on to any version of Lily I could get. The entity knew exactly what bait to use, and I was already half hooked. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Grandma Ellie, I miss you. Why won't you come home? I showed it to Dr. Moss. She looked grim. It's starting. The entity is testing your boundaries. Don't respond. But the phone buzzed again, and again. Each message more heartbreaking than the last. I'm scared and alone. Daddy says you don't want to see me anymore. Did I do something wrong? Please come home, Grandma Ellie. Please. I watched the messages appear, each one a knife in my heart. The entity knew exactly what to say, knew exactly how to make me doubt everything. Because what if I was wrong? What if somehow Lily was alive and I was abandoning her? Eleanor, put the phone down. Dr. Moss's voice was firm. But I couldn't, because another message appeared, and this one stopped my heart. I forgive you for not loving Mommy enough. I know you tried. How did it know that? How could it possibly know my deepest shame, that I'd failed my own daughter, that Lily had been my attempt at redemption? Eleanor! Dr. Moss snatched the phone from my hands, but it was too late. I'd already started crying, already started breaking, because the entity had found my weakness, and we still had 58 hours before this was over. The medical examiner released Lily's body at 11 a.m. on Sunday morning. We'd scheduled the funeral for 3 p.m. that same day at a small chapel Marcus knew near the precinct. Dr. Moss had advised against a large public service, explaining that crowds amplified emotional energy and created more opportunities for the entity to manifest. So we kept it intimate, just family and Marcus's closest colleagues from the department. I saw Lily's body in the casket at noon during the private viewing. They dressed her in the white dress with pink flowers that she'd worn to her first piano recital 6 months ago. Her hands were folded across her chest, holding the stuffed rabbit she'd slept with since she was 2. Someone had arranged her curls carefully around her face. She looked peaceful, they said. She looked like she was sleeping. She looked dead. That's what she looked like. My granddaughter was dead, and no amount of careful makeup or pretty clothes could hide that fundamental truth. Cassandra stood beside me, gripping my hand so tightly my fingers went numb. She hadn't spoken in hours, just stared at her daughter's body with empty eyes, tears streaming silently down her face. Marcus stood on her other side, rigid and controlled, but I could see his jaw clenching rhythmically, could see the way his hands shook when he touched the casket. "I need to tell you something." Marcus's voice was rough, about how they found her, about what she was holding. "Marcus, you don't have to," I started. "Yes, I do, because it matters, because you need to know what kind of person she was." He took a shaking breath. "When she fell from that platform, she could have grabbed onto the railing, could have tried to catch herself, but she didn't. She pushed away from it, pushed away from the men who were chasing her, because she knew if they caught her, they'd use her against me. She chose falling over being a hostage. My 7-year-old daughter chose death over being used as leverage." Cassandra made a broken sound. "She was so brave, so much braver than me." "She was like both of you," I said quietly. "Brave like her father, stubborn like her mother, and she loved you both so much." I paused, forcing myself to say what needed to be said. "I wasted so much time being critical of your marriage, being disappointed that Marcus wasn't what I'd envisioned for you. But Lily knew. She knew you two had something special. She told me once that she wanted to marry someone who looked at her the way Daddy looks at Mommy." Marcus closed his eyes. Fresh tears tracked down his cheeks. "When did she say that?" Cassandra whispered. "Last time she stayed with me, 3 weeks ago. We were watching a movie with a wedding scene, and she just announced it out of nowhere. Said she didn't care if he was rich or had a fancy job. She just wanted someone who loved her like that." I looked at my daughter. She was 7 years old, and she already understood something I never did. That love matters more than status or money or any of the shallow things I valued. "Eleanor." "No, let me finish. I was a terrible mother to you, Cassandra. I put my expectations above your happiness. I made you feel like nothing you did was good enough. And when you found someone who genuinely loved you, I punished you both for it." I turned to Marcus. "I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry for every cold comment, every implied criticism, every time I made you feel unwelcome in my home. You're a good man. You were always a good man, and I was too blind to see it." Marcus was staring at me, shocked. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. I just needed you both to know. Before—" I trailed off, looking at Lily's still face. "Before we say goodbye." Dr. Moss appeared in the doorway of the viewing room. "It's time. The service is starting. And Eleanor, I need to warn you, it's going to try something during the funeral. These entities always do. Be prepared." She was right. 10 minutes into the brief service, I felt it. A coldness that had nothing to do with the chapel's air conditioning. A sense of presence that made my skin crawl. I glanced around, trying to locate the source. Most of the attendees were Marcus's colleagues, good people who'd brought their families, who'd sent flowers and cards, who were genuinely grieving for a child they barely knew because they loved Marcus. Then I saw her. Standing in the back of the chapel, partially hidden behind one of Marcus's detective partners. She looked exactly like Lily had looked 3 weeks ago when she'd stayed with me, wearing her favorite yellow sundress with the sunflowers, her hair in the 2 braids she always requested for special occasions. She was smiling at me. That same gap-toothed, innocent smile that had lit up my entire world. My heart seized. I knew it wasn't real, knew it was the entity, but God, it looked like her. It looked exactly like her. "Mom?" Cassandra had followed my gaze. "Mom, what is it?" Back of the room, yellow dress. I kept my voice low, but several people turned to look. When they did, The thing wearing Lily's face waved cheerfully, like any 7-year-old might wave at her grandmother during a church service. "I don't see anyone in a yellow dress," Cassandra said, confused. "Mom, there's no one there." "Yes, there is, she's right." I looked again. The space was empty. The entity had vanished. It was there. I saw it. Marcus leaned over. "Eleanor, are you okay?" "It's here. Dr. Moss was right. It came to the funeral." Dr. Moss, sitting in the row behind us, moved forward. "What did you see?" "Lily, wearing her yellow sundress, the one with sunflowers. She was smiling at me." "Did anyone else see her?" "No. It disappeared when other people looked." Dr. Moss's expression was grim. "It's getting stronger, confident enough to appear even in a room full of people. That's not good." The priest continued the service, oblivious to our whispered conversation. He talked about Lily's light, her joy, her future that had been stolen too soon. He said comforting things about heaven and peace and God's plan. None of it helped. None of it made the crushing weight of loss any lighter. Then he invited anyone who wanted to share memories to come forward. Several of Marcus's colleagues spoke. Lily's teacher, who'd driven 2 hours to be there. A neighbor who'd lived next to Cassandra and Marcus for 5 years. Each person shared small, perfect details. How Lily loved to draw pictures for people. How she'd started a petition in 1st grade to get more books in the school library. How she'd once spent her allowance money buying food for a homeless man she saw on the street. I realized I should speak, should share something. But what could I say? That I'd loved her more than I'd loved my own daughter? That she'd been my escape from loneliness and guilt? That I'd used a 7-year-old child as my emotional support because I was too broken to connect with actual adults? I'd like to say something. Cassandra stood, surprising me. She walked to the front of the chapel, stood beside her daughter's casket, and took a breath. Lily was the best thing I ever did, better than any design project, any career achievement. She was funny and smart and stubborn and so brave. She was everything I hope I taught her to be, and so much more that was just innately her. Her voice cracked, but she continued. She loved her father completely. Thought he was a superhero. Used to brag to her friends that her daddy caught bad guys. When she found out what happened, when she knew those men were connected to his work, her last act was to save him from having to choose between his job and her life. She chose for him. That's the kind of person she was. Cassandra turned to look at Marcus. "I don't blame you. I know I said terrible things yesterday. I was wrong. You gave our daughter a father she was proud of. You showed her what integrity looks like, what dedication means. She died because evil people exist, not because you tried to stop them. I'm sorry I made you think otherwise." Marcus stood and walked to the front, wrapping his arms around his wife. They stood there together beside their daughter's casket, holding each other, and I saw the entity again. It was standing right next to them, so close it could have touched them. But this time, it wasn't smiling. It looked frustrated, almost angry. Then it looked directly at me and mouthed words I could somehow understand despite the distance. "You can still save them. Just believe." I looked away, focusing on my hands folded in my lap. It was playing with my guilt, trying to make me think I could fix this, could bring Lily back, could undo the tragedy by simply accepting the entity's offer. But I knew better now. Accepting that thing wouldn't save anyone. It would only trap us all in a nightmare that looked like comfort. Dr. Moss leaned forward and whispered, "It's making its final move. The confrontation is coming. Are you ready?" I looked at Cassandra and Marcus, still holding each other beside their daughter's body. Looked at the entity that was mimicking that same daughter's form, and I made my choice. "Yes," I said firmly. "I'm ready. Let's end this." Dr. Moss had prepared what she called a truth circle in a private room at the chapel, a space typically used for grief counseling. She'd arranged candles in a specific pattern, placed photographs of Lily at various ages around the perimeter, and in the center she'd set the gold bracelet that Marcus had retrieved from the medical examiner. The one Lily had torn from her own wrist and clutched in her hand as she died, as if she knew it would be important, as if she wanted to leave proof of who she really was. "The three of you need to enter the circle together," Dr. Moss explained, as the last funeral guests departed. "Once you're inside, I'll seal it with salt. The entity will be drawn to the circle because that's where the strongest emotional energy will be concentrated. It will try to break your resolve, exploit every weakness, say anything to make you believe it's really Lily. You cannot let it succeed." "How do we stop it?" Cassandra asked. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying, her voice hoarse. "You speak the truth, out loud. Each of you has to say what you know to be real, that Lily Hartwell Donovan died at 8:32 p.m. on Friday, December 20th, that she's gone and not coming back. And most importantly, you have to mean it. Not just intellectually, but emotionally. You have to accept it in your hearts, not just your minds." "That's impossible," Marcus said flatly. "I can say the words. I can know they're true. But accepting in my heart that my daughter is dead? That's not something I can just switch on." "Then the entity wins." Dr. Moss's voice was harsh, but her eyes were sympathetic. "I know what I'm asking. I know it's cruel. But these things feed on hope, on the desperate human need to believe that death isn't final. You have to close that door completely. You have to grieve without hope of reversal." I thought about the past 3 years since Robert died. All the times I'd pretended he was still alive. All the conversations I'd imagined having with him. All the ways I'd kept him alive in my mind, because accepting his death meant accepting my guilt over our last argument. I'd never truly let him go, and it had destroyed me slowly, pill by pill, drink by drink, lonely night by lonely night. "I understand," I said quietly. "I've been refusing to accept death for 3 years. It's made me into someone I don't recognize, someone who needs medication to function, who pushes away everyone who cares about her, who uses a 7-year-old as her only emotional connection." I looked at Cassandra and Marcus. "I won't do that with Lily. I won't dishonor her memory by refusing to accept she's gone." We entered the circle, me, Cassandra, and Marcus, standing in a triangle around the photographs and the bracelet. Dr. Moss poured salt in a careful line around us, sealing us in. Then she stepped back and turned off the overhead lights, leaving only the candles. "It will come soon," she said. "Be strong. Remember why you're doing this." We didn't have to wait long. The temperature dropped so suddenly I could see my breath. The candles flickered, despite the absence of any breeze. And then she was there, standing just outside the circle, wearing the white funeral dress we'd buried her in. But she was standing, moving, smiling that heartbreaking smile. "Grandma Ellie," she said, her voice exactly right, exactly as I remembered it. "Why are you standing in a circle? This is silly." I felt my resolve crack immediately. God, she looked so real, so alive. Her cheeks had color. Her eyes sparkled with intelligence and humor. She was perfect in every detail, from the way she twisted a curl around her finger to the small gap between her front teeth. "You're not Lily," I said, but my voice shook. "Yes, I am. I'm right here. I don't know why everyone keeps saying I'm dead. I'm not dead, Grandma. I'm right here. Can't you see me?" Cassandra made a wounded sound. "Baby, is that really you?" "Don't," Marcus said urgently, grabbing his wife's hand. "Cass, that's not her. Remember what Dr. Moss said. It's going to look like her, sound like her, but it's not." "But what if we're wrong?" Cassandra's voice broke. "What if she really did survive somehow? What if this is real and we're rejecting our daughter because some woman told us to believe in monsters?" The entity smiled, sensing weakness. "Mommy, please, I'm scared. Why won't you come get me? Why are you standing there with Daddy and Grandma doing this weird thing with candles?" "Because you're dead," I said, forcing strength into my voice. "Lily Hartwell Donovan died on Friday night at 8:32 p.m. She fell from a loading platform, trying to escape from the men who kidnapped her. She died on impact. Her body was found by police officers, including her father. She was buried today at 3 p.m. Those are the facts. The entity's expression shifted, becoming less childlike. Those are lies. I'm alive. I'm standing right here. Are you really going to trust facts over what you can see with your own eyes? Yes, Marcus said, because I identified her body. I saw her injuries, I held her hand and it was cold and she was gone. My daughter is dead. Daddy, why are you saying that? The entity's voice took on a pleading quality that tore at my heart. Why are you being so mean? I came back. I came back for you. Isn't that what you wanted? More than anything, Marcus admitted, tears streaming down his face. More than anything in this world, I want you back. But you're not back. You're gone. And whatever you are, you're not my daughter. The entity's frustration was visible now. It circled the salt barrier, looking for weakness, for a way in. Grandma Ellie, you know it's me. Remember 3 weeks ago? We watched that movie about the princess and you made chocolate chip cookies. Remember how I asked if you'd teach me to bake them myself? Remember how I said I wanted to marry someone who looked at me like Daddy looks at Mommy? My breath caught. How did it know that? We'd been alone. Cassandra and Marcus hadn't been there. I'd never told anyone about that conversation. You're using her memories, I said. You're feeding me information from Lily's mind to make me believe. Or maybe I'm actually Lily and you're choosing to believe a stranger over your own granddaughter. The entity moved closer to the barrier. I forgive you, you know. For all the years you weren't there for Mommy. For all the times you made Daddy feel small. For all the ways you failed. I forgive all of it. Just let me in. Just believe. Stop it, Cassandra said, her voice rising. Stop using her voice to say those things. Stop pretending you're my daughter. I am your daughter. I am. The entity's voice rose to a shriek that hurt my ears. Why won't you believe me? Why won't you let me come home? Because you're not real, I said firmly. Because the real Lily is dead, and we have to accept that. We have to let her go. The entity's face twisted into something ugly and inhuman. The resemblance to Lily disappeared as rage consumed its features. Fine. Then let me show you what your precious Lily really thought about all of you. Its voice changed, became cruel and mocking. She thought you were a bitter old woman, Eleanor. Thought you were lonely and pathetic. She only visited because her parents made her. She found you boring. That's not true, I said, but doubt crept in. And you, Cassandra, she resented you. Resented that you were always working, always gone. She wished her mother actually wanted to be around her instead of chasing corporate design contracts. Stop it, Cassandra whispered. And Marcus. Oh, poor Marcus. She was terrified of your job. Had nightmares about you dying. Flinched every time she heard sirens because she thought maybe this time it was the call saying you weren't coming home. She loved you, sure, but she was scared of you. Scared of what your work meant for her safety. Marcus's face had gone white. She never said, of course she didn't say. She was 7 years old, trying to be brave for a father who was too obsessed with catching criminals to notice his own daughter was falling apart. I saw it then, what the entity was doing. It was exploiting our worst fears, our deepest insecurities, making us doubt our relationships with Lily, making us question whether we'd really known her at all. And if we couldn't trust our memories of her, how could we be certain she was really gone? Enough, I said loudly. I don't care what you say. I don't care what doubts you try to plant. I know what was real. Lily loved us, imperfectly, humanly, but genuinely, and she's dead. Those are the two truths that matter. You don't know anything, the entity spat. You're a lonely old woman who drove away her own daughter and used her granddaughter as a replacement. You're pathetic. Yes, I agreed. I am pathetic. I failed Cassandra. I failed Robert. I even failed Lily by not being the grandmother she fully deserved. But I'm not going to fail her now by letting something wear her face like a costume. I'm going to honor her memory by accepting the truth. I picked up the gold bracelet from the center of the circle. The metal was still stained with Lily's blood. I held it up so the entity could see. This was in her hand when she died. She tore it off her own wrist and held onto it. Maybe she knew somehow that it would be proof, that it would help us remember who she really was when something tried to imitate her. The entity recoiled from the bracelet as if it burned. "Put that down! Put it down!" "Why? Does it hurt you? Does physical evidence of her death weaken your illusion?" I stepped forward, as close to the salt line as I dared. Lily Hartwell Donovan was 7 years old. She had brown curly hair and dark eyes. She loved art and books and her family. She died trying to escape from monsters. Real monsters, not supernatural ones. And this bracelet is all we have left of her physical presence in the world. Cassandra moved beside me, reaching out to touch the bracelet. She wore this every day, never took it off. I had to remind her to take it off for baths because she'd forget. "She loved it," Marcus added, his voice thick with tears. "Because Eleanor gave it to her. Because it had her name engraved on it. Because it made her feel special." We stood there together, the three of us holding this small piece of gold and blood and loss, and something shifted. The entity's form flickered, became less stable. Its resemblance to Lily wavered. "No," it said, and now there were multiple voices overlapping, none of them childlike. "No, you're supposed to want her back. You're supposed to need her so badly you'll accept any version. That's how this works. That's how it always works." "Not this time," Dr. Moss said from outside the circle. She'd pulled out a leather-bound book and was reading from it in a language I didn't recognize. The candles flared brighter with each word she spoke. The entity screamed. Not a human sound, but something primal and ancient and full of rage. It lunged at the salt barrier, and I saw it clearly now. Not Lily at all, but something dark and formless trying to hold on to her shape like a drowning person clinging to debris. "Say it," Dr. Moss commanded. "All three of you. Say it together and mean it with everything you have." I looked at Cassandra and Marcus, saw my own pain reflected in their faces. We were broken people standing in a circle of salt and candles, holding a blood-stained bracelet that represented everything we'd lost. But we were together, finally, truly together as a family should be. Lily Hartwell. "Donovan died on Friday, December 20th at 8:32 p.m., I said. Cassandra continued, her voice breaking but determined. "She was our daughter and granddaughter. We loved her completely, and she's gone." Marcus finished, the words torn from somewhere deep inside him. "We accept that she's dead. We accept that she's not coming back. We accept that we have to live without her." The entity exploded. That's the only word for it. It burst apart into shadows and screaming voices and a coldness that made my bones ache. The candles went out all at once. The temperature plummeted. And for a moment, just a brief, terrible moment, I felt something brush past me. Something that whispered directly into my mind. "You could have saved her. You chose wrong." Then it was gone. The lights came back on. The temperature normalized. The oppressive presence that had been haunting us for 3 days simply vanished, leaving nothing behind but the three of us standing in a circle, holding a bracelet, crying. Dr. Moss stepped forward and broke the salt line. "It's over. The entity has been expelled." Cassandra collapsed. Marcus caught her, and they sank to the floor together, sobbing. I stood there for a moment longer, still holding the bracelet, looking at the photographs of Lily scattered around the circle. Pictures from her first birthday, her first day of school, last Christmas, last summer. A whole life condensed into images. A person reduced to memory. "We did the right thing," I said, needing to hear it aloud. "We did what Lily would have wanted, right?" Dr. Moss put a hand on my shoulder. Yes, you honored her by refusing to let something else wear her face. That took tremendous courage. But it didn't feel like courage. It felt like the hardest, cruelest thing I'd ever done. We'd chosen reality over comfort, truth over illusion, and it had cost us the last chance to see Lily's face, even if it wasn't really her. I looked down at my daughter and son-in-law holding each other on the floor, both of them destroyed by grief, but still together, still fighting to survive this. And I realized something important. We hadn't just expelled an entity. We'd become a real family, broken and grieving and forever changed, but finally honest with each other. Finally connected by something deeper than obligation or expectation. I knelt down beside them and put my arms around both of them. Cassandra leaned into me, something she hadn't done since she was a child. Marcus didn't pull away. We stayed like that for a long time, 3 people mourning one person, learning how to exist in a world where Lily was truly, finally, irreversibly gone. I miss her, Cassandra whispered. God, I miss her so much. Me too, Marcus said. Me too, I echoed. And that was the truth we'd carry forward. Not the lies the entity offered, not the false comfort of pretending. Just the raw, honest truth of our loss and our love for the little girl who'd been brave enough to save herself, and, in doing so, had saved us from something much worse. 3 months later, I stood in the guest room of my Victorian mansion, staring at the bed where the entity had pretended to sleep. I'd avoided this room since that night, keeping the door closed, pretending it didn't exist. But Cassandra and Marcus were moving in with me permanently, and we needed the space. It was time to reclaim it from the horror that had happened here. You don't have to do this alone, you know. Cassandra stood in the doorway, watching me. She'd moved back to Boston 2 weeks after the funeral, unable to stay in the apartment where Lily had grown up. Too many memories, too many empty spaces where a child should have been. I know, but I need to. I pulled the sheets off the bed, bundled them up. I need to prove to myself that this is just a room, not a haunted space, not a shrine, just a room that needs new purpose. We talked about turning it into a home office for Cassandra. She'd started taking clients again, working from home so she didn't have to be alone all day. Marcus had transferred to a fraud investigation unit, couldn't handle homicides anymore, couldn't see dead children without thinking of his own. The pay was slightly less, but we'd all learned that some things mattered more than money. Dr. Moss called yesterday, Cassandra said. Wanted to check in. She said the first 6 months are the hardest. She would know. I'd learned more about Dr. Moss's story since the funeral. Her son had been dead 23 years now, and she'd spent the last 2 decades helping families avoid the mistake she'd made, turning her tragedy into purpose. I admired that. Mom, can I ask you something? Cassandra sat on the stripped bed. Do you think we made the right choice, sending it away? I'd wondered the same thing countless times over the past 3 months. Wondered what would have happened if we'd accepted the entity. If we'd let it stay, let it be Lily. Would it really have been so terrible? Having something that looked like her, sounded like her, even if it wasn't quite right? Yes, I said firmly. Because Lily deserved better than to have her identity stolen by something that didn't love us, didn't know us, just fed on us. She deserved to be remembered as herself, not replaced by an imitation. I dream about her sometimes, Cassandra admitted. The real her, I mean, not the thing from that night. In my dreams, she's always laughing, always happy. Is that my mind trying to protect me? Or is it really her somehow? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe what matters is that you're remembering her with love instead of just pain. I'd started therapy 2 weeks after the funeral, real therapy with a trauma specialist, not just Dr. Moss's paranormal expertise. I'd also started tapering off my anxiety medication under medical supervision, cutting back on the wine, learning to cope with Robert's death in healthier ways. It was hard. Some nights I still wanted nothing more than to take a double dose and sink into oblivion. But I'd made a promise to myself, to Lily's memory, that I'd do better, be better. Marcus appeared in the hallway carrying paint cans. Got the color you wanted, Cass, that soft gray you picked out. They'd been doing that a lot lately, small domestic tasks together, rebuilding their relationship through shared projects. They'd come close to falling apart after Lily died. The blame, the guilt, the sheer weight of loss had nearly crushed them. But they'd chosen to fight for each other instead of against each other. I'd never been prouder of my daughter. Thanks, babe. Cassandra kissed him, a quick, familiar gesture that still made my heart ache with regret over all the years I'd been cold to him. We should probably start with primer first, right? Always primer first. He smiled at her, and I saw what Lily had seen. The way he looked at Cassandra like she was his entire world, like nothing else mattered as much as she did. I left them to their painting and went downstairs to my own project. I'd been sorting through photographs for a memory book, real photographs printed and arranged by hand, not digital files on a computer. Dr. Moss had suggested it as a healthy way to process grief. Having a physical object that honored Lily's real life, her actual existence. The dining room table was covered with pictures spanning 7 years. Lily as a newborn, impossibly tiny in Cassandra's arms. Lily taking her first steps, wobbling toward Marcus with determination. Lily at 3, covered in finger paint and grinning. Lily at 5, missing her 2 front teeth. Lily at 6, serious and focused at her first piano recital. And Lily at 7, just 3 weeks before she died, sitting in my gallery looking at a painting of a garden. She'd told me that day that she wanted to be an artist when she grew up. Like you, Grandma Ellie, she'd said, I want to help people see beautiful things. I picked up that photograph, studied her face, really looked at it, searching for any resemblance to the thing that had worn her features. There was none. The entity had gotten the physical details right, but it had missed the essence. The spark of intelligence in her eyes, the slight tilt of her head when she was thinking, the genuine warmth of her smile. She was beautiful. Marcus had come downstairs, paint-speckled and tired. Inside and out, we did good, Eleanor. Between the 3 of us, we raised an incredible kid. It was the first time he'd included me in that statement, the first time he'd acknowledged that I'd played a role in Lily's life beyond just being the judgmental grandmother. It meant more than he probably knew. We did. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you that more often while she was alive. I'm sorry I spent so much time criticizing instead of celebrating what you and Cassandra built together. Water under the bridge. He sat down across from me, picked up a photo of Lily on her bicycle. You've changed, Eleanor, these past few months. You're different. Grief has a way of burning away the unnecessary parts, the pretenses, the pride, the stupid social conventions I thought mattered so much. I gestured at the photographs. I wasted years maintaining distance from my own daughter because she didn't fit my vision of what her life should be. I almost missed out on knowing Lily because I was too busy disapproving of her parents. That's pathetic. It's human. We all have regrets. Yes, but mine cost me time with people I loved, time I can never get back. I paused. I don't want to waste any more time, Marcus. I want to be the mother Cassandra needed me to be 20 years ago. I want to be the mother-in-law you deserved. Better late than never, right? Right. He smiled, genuine and warm. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here. Glad we're doing this together. Living together, grieving together. It helps. Cassandra came down an hour later to find us both working on the memory book, arguing good-naturedly about which photos to include and how to arrange them. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs and just watched us for a moment, her expression soft. What? I asked. Nothing. It's just, this is what Lily wanted. For all of us to actually like each other, to be a real family. She was wise beyond her years, I said. She got that from you, Mom, the wisdom, the ability to see what really matters. Cassandra joined us at the table. I was angry at you for so many years, for the criticism, the judgment, the way you treated Marcus. But Lily never was. She'd tell me, Grandma Ellie just doesn't know how to say she loves people, but she does, you can tell. My eyes burned with tears. She said that? All the time. She was your biggest defender. Would argue with me when I complained about you. Cassandra laughed, but it was bittersweet. She had this theory that you were just lonely and scared after Grandpa died. She was 7 years old, and she understood you better than I did at 32. We worked on the memory book together for the rest of the afternoon, the three of us sharing stories and tears and occasional laughter. It hurt. Every photograph was a reminder of what we'd lost, but it also helped. This was real. This was Lily's actual life, not some entity's imitation. These were genuine memories, not manufactured comfort. As the sun set, Marcus's phone rang. He stepped away to take the call, came back looking grim. That was the DA. The trafficking ring case is going to trial next month. They want me to testify about how Lily's abduction connected to my investigation. Are you ready for that? I asked. No, but I'll do it anyway. Those men need to pay for what they did, and maybe it will give us some closure. Closure seemed like an impossible goal. How could we ever have closure on losing a 7-year-old to violence? How could we ever make peace with a death that never should have happened? But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the point was learning to live with the wound, not trying to heal it completely. We should finish the guest room tomorrow, Cassandra said. Make it a proper office. I have a client meeting next week that I could use it for. That sounds good. And I was thinking, I paused, nervous about suggesting this. What if we planted a garden in the backyard? Something with Lily's favorite flowers. Not a memorial exactly, just a living thing. Something that grows instead of staying frozen in time. They both looked at me, considering. Then Marcus nodded. She'd like that. She loved your garden. Sunflowers, Cassandra said. She loved sunflowers. Always tried to pick the biggest ones. Then sunflowers it is. We sat there in the fading light, 3 broken people learning how to build something new from the ruins of what we'd lost. It wasn't what any of us wanted. We all would have preferred to have Lily back, laughing and alive and filling our lives with joy. But that wasn't possible. Death was final, and accepting that truth was the only way forward. The entity had offered us a lie dressed as comfort. We'd chosen painful truth instead. And slowly, day by day, we were learning to live with that choice, learning to honor Lily by being honest about her death while celebrating her life, learning to be the family she'd always believed we could be. Some nights I still heard that laugh, that terrible, wrong laugh from the entity. But more often now, I heard Lily's real laugh in my memory, the genuine sound of a child who'd been loved and who'd loved in return. That was the sound I chose to carry forward. Not the monster's imitation, but the real girl's joy. Thank you, I said quietly to both of them, for letting me be part of this, for letting me try again. Cassandra took my hand. Marcus took my other hand. We sat there together at the table covered with photographs of Lily, holding on to each other because that's all we had left. Connection, love, the determination to survive this impossible grief together. And somehow, it was enough. Not what we wanted, but enough to keep going. Enough to build a future that honored the past without being trapped by it. Enough to let Lily's memory be a source of love instead of just pain. The entity had tried to exploit our grief, to feed on our pain, to trap us in a comfortable lie. Instead, we'd chosen the hard path, the real path. And 3 months later, we were still walking it together, still broken, still grieving, but finally, truly a family. That's what Lily had given us in the end. Not just 7 years of joy and love, but the catalyst that forced us to become the people we should have been all along. It was a cruel gift, paid for with her life. But we were determined not to waste it. We would survive this, together, And we would make sure that Lily Hartwell Donovan was remembered not for how she died, but for how fully, bravely, and beautifully she lived.